Have you noticed the rise in sustainable design pieces? In haute design, avant-garde aesthetics that incorporate ecological material innovation and impressive sustainability performance at the same time? My experience of this niche started at MoMA and at the Museum of Applied Arts in Cologne and the design collection of the Pinakothek der Moderne in Munich. But lots of other museums have hosted design exhibits that speak to this trend as well. And this type of design has been spreading into stores and marketplaces over the last 5 years, as more and more product designers dare to take the leap toward slow production with exceptional materials. For this episode, I've curated 12 designs, from museum collections to emerging studios, from the 1990s to the current moment, that show us some of the greatest successes in this vein of design innovation. If you have any others you're aware of that you think I should have added, write a comment and I might make a part 2. What I find most inspiring is that these aren't pieces that are interesting despite being sustainable. They're pieces where the constraint of sustainability was the very thing that produced the form, material, and story. And it created something exceptional. A limitation was turned into creative fuel and created something that exceeds conventional design pieces. Alongside the presentation of these top 12 iconic sustainable design pieces, I want to show the business ingenuity behind such design. Because avant-garde sustainable product design proves something that much of the rest of the industry is still catching up to. That sustainable design commands premium value, elevates brand perception, and builds the kind of brand equity that conventional production simply cannot replicate. This is our 5th episode of On Emergence, the podcast about business and ESG strategy, and how we can leverage creative thinking to help ourselves be better leaders and better entrepreneurs. We open with what I consider one of the most quietly radical objects in contemporary design. In 2008, fashion designer Issey Miyake approached Okisato of the Japanese studio Nendo with an unusual request. Can you make something from the pleated paper that accumulates as industrial waste from the pleats please fabric production process? This paper, which is produced in enormous quantities, is usually discarded, but it became the source of the Cabbage chair. This design is actually a single roll of layered pleated paper cut with one slit. There's no internal structure, there are no nails or screws in this design. You simply peel back the layers like a cabbage and the chair reveals itself. So each one is unique, and each one is made entirely from waste of the fashion industry. Nendo described it as a chair for active, optimistic, forward-moving 21st century people. People who, in Miyake's words, don't just wear clothes, but shed their skin. The business argument here is evident. This chair has been exhibited in major design institutions worldwide and commands significant collector value, while it was created at near zero material cost from industrial waste. It's the most elegant possible proof that waste in the right hands is not a liability, but a material waiting for its designer. Mater is a Danish design brand that I want to spend a bit more time on, because they're not showcasing one iconic piece, they're building an entire design language around circular material innovation, and the results are honestly extraordinary. Their signature innovation is a patented material called Matek, which is a composite of plastic and natural fiber that's fully circular. Chairs made from Matek are collected at end of life and fed back into the production process, so the loop closes completely. But what I think makes Mater remarkable is the range of waste streams they've turned into premium design objects. The bowl table is made from coffee waste combined with Matek. The mask stool is made from grain waste and plastic used in insulin pens. And their ocean outdoor seating is made from recycled beer kegs and generates less than half the CO2 emissions of a conventional plastic chair. Lastly, there's the Eternity Chair, which was designed in collaboration with Space Copenhagen. It's elegant, restrained, and unmistakably premium. I think Mater proves the full business case in one brand. Sustainable materials reduce long-term input costs. Circular collection creates customer relationships that go beyond a sale. And the story of each material, whether it's coffee, grain, medical plastic, or beer kegs, becomes a marketing asset that no conventional brand can manufacture. The sustainability is the brand identity, and it works. Now we move from Denmark to Mexico City, and from industrial circularity to something much older and more sacred. La Metropolitana was founded in 2008 by Rodrigo Escobedo, Alejandro Gutierrez, and Mauricio Guerrero, 3 designers who treat wood not as a raw material, but as what Escobedo calls the remains of a living thing, like bones. To La Metropolitana, working with wood means working with something that was once alive, that stored energy, held water, sheltered species, and shaped a landscape before it ever became furniture. So every piece they make carries that weight. They work primarily with native Mexican timbers, including tzalam, which is a hardwood from the Yucatan Peninsula, and combine CNC fabrication with traditional craftsmanship in collaboration with local artisan communities. Their sustainability isn't just material, it's social. They've moved entire production facilities to communities affected by violence in Mexico, creating workshops that link design, permaculture, education, and community development. The studio's furniture has been commissioned by Noma for a Mexico City pop-up and has furnished boutique hotels in Mexico City's historic center. It's understated, beautifully proportioned, and carries a depth of meaning that you feel before you hear it articulated. The business argument for this brand is that in an era where provenance and story are among the most valuable brand assets, La Metropolitana's combination of material honesty, indigenous timber knowledge, and community-rooted production is essentially impossible to replicate. This is what authentic luxury looks like in the 21st century. Now we're going to broaden our scope a little, moving across the Pacific. Because before contemporary sustainable design had its vocabulary, Southeast Asian carpenters had been working with bamboo for generations. Bamboo is arguably the most sustainably perfect structural material on the planet. It grows faster than any tree, up to 1 meter per day. It sequesters carbon actively during growth, requires no pesticides, minimal water, and regenerates from its own root system without replanting. And along with all this, it has a tensile strength that's comparable to steel. Bamboo has been used across Southeast Asia for millennia to build everything from bridges to homes and furniture with extraordinary elegance. This tradition is not a relic at all. It's a living design intelligence continued to this day that the contemporary world is only beginning to properly credit. One contemporary designer I want to highlight today is the Filipino designer Kenneth Cobonpue, who represents its most celebrated contemporary expression. He's internationally renowned as a designer, and his work fuses sustainably harvested bamboo and rattan with hand-woven techniques and daringly contemporary aesthetics. His pieces have furnished hotels and residences worldwide, proving that the material traditions of Southeast Asia translate seamlessly into global luxury design contexts. Here we see that what we would call innovation from our limited worldview is something the indigenous Southeast Asian design culture has known for centuries. The material is not exactly innovative, but the world is finally paying attention. Forma Fantasma, which consists of the Italian duo Andrea Trimarchi and Simone Faresin, is now based in Rotterdam and Milan, and they're perhaps the most intellectually invested design studio working at the intersection of sustainability and design today. What distinguishes them is that they don't just make sustainable objects, they deeply interrogate the entire system of material production, including governance, extraction, politics, and ecology. And they make their research visible in the work itself. Forma Fantasma's Botanica collection asked the viewer, what if petroleum-based plastics had never been invented? They researched 18th and 19th century polymers derived from plants and organic materials, recreated them, and formed them into vessels that are simultaneously functional, strangely beautiful, and hold a deeper argument. Their Cambio exhibition at London's Serpentine Gallery explored the governance of timber extraction. The furniture in this exhibition was made entirely from wood harvested from a single tree, a spruce felled in a forest in northern Italy, destroyed by climate change in 2018. And the exhibition used design to make the politics of forestry legible. Forma Fantasma's business argument is subtle, but powerful. In a market saturated with sustainability claims, genuine intellectual rigor is itself a luxury differentiator. Their work commands institutional collection, critical attention, and premium commercial commissions, precisely because it can't be faked. Now we move to Erik Klarenbeek's Mycelium chair. Klarenbeek is a Dutch designer who's been exploring mycelium, the root network of fungi, as a structural material for more than a decade. His mycelium chair is 3D printed using a bioplastic structure seeded with mycelium spores that then grow into and around the form, binding and strengthening it as it develops. The material innovation underlying this work owes much to Ecovative Design, an American biomaterials company that pioneered mycelium composites as replacements for polystyrene. They proved that mycelium could be grown into virtually any form, fully compostable, and can match or exceed the structural properties of conventional synthetic materials. Klarenbeek then brought this material insight into a design object, and the result is a chair with a near zero carbon footprint, fully biodegradable at end of life. It looks organic, textured, and somehow both extraterrestrial and earthy. It's definitely not mass-market furniture, and it points toward a future where our furniture returns to the earth as completely as it came from it, without looking boring to make it happen. Number 7. The Norwegian architecture and design practice Snøhetta collaborated with Nordic Comfort Products to produce a chair that quietly dismantles every assumption about what recycled plastic looks and feels like. The chair is made from discarded fishing nets recovered from the northern Norwegian fishing industry, a waste stream that would otherwise contribute to the catastrophic problem of ghost gear in the world's oceans. The nets are collected, processed, and transformed into a material that's structurally sound, beautifully finished, and carries one of the lowest carbon footprints of any chair currently on the market. It's been recognized by the European Circular Economy Stakeholder Platform as a showcase of circular economy design in action. The form is calm, considered, and completely free of the visual language of sustainability performance. It simply looks like beautiful, minimalist Scandinavian design. And the piece demonstrates a critical business case. Sustainable designs don't require exceptional aesthetics to justify their existence. The fishing nets that make up this chair are invisible in the object, but what's visible is the quality of the material. The sustainability could be traced in the supply chain analysis. It's found in the material science or the carbon accounting, but not in the visual vocabulary, which means this design can be sold to exactly the same customer who buys conventional premium furniture, with a significantly stronger story binding it together. And now we get to a beautiful piece of design history that blew me away when I first saw it in a gallery. In 1972, Frank Gehry created a whole series of designs called Easy Edges, and the wiggle chair has become its most well-known piece. The material, which is layered, corrugated, industrially produced cardboard, is one of the most abundant and least prestigious materials available. And Gehry's insight here was structural as much as it was aesthetic. By laminating layers of corrugated cardboard with the corrugations running in alternating directions, he created a material with surprising rigidity and load-bearing capacity. I was honestly quite skeptical when I heard that the wiggle chair can support an entire adult's weight, made only from cardboard. The form that emerged to create this performance is genuinely extraordinary. It's sinuous, almost biomorphic, with a visual energy that no conventional material would have generated. The form was very much inspired by the material's characteristics. And the wiggle chair has been in continuous production since the 80s through Vitra, and it sits in major museum collections worldwide. It's still one of the most reproduced images in 20th century furniture design. For designers and brands, the lesson here is that material constraints are not the enemy of iconic design. They're historically among its most reliable generators. Number 9, the Favela chair. In the early 1990s, Brazilian designers Fernando and Humberto Campana were working near a fruit market in Sao Paulo where wooden slats were abundant. It's a cheap scrap timber used in informal construction of the city's favelas. Humberto described, "I used glue and nails to connect one piece of wood to another with no rationality. The only rationality in that project was to construct irrationality. And the result was the favela chair, a form that looks simultaneously chaotic and inevitable, like a wooden explosion that happened to produce a throne. Each piece takes over a week to make by hand, and no two are identical. And this chair is featured in the permanent collections of the MoMA, Metropolitan Museum of Art, Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris, and the Design Museum in London, even though the material is entirely scrap and the final product honestly reflects that truth visually. But the concept that the Campana brothers drew from is so inspiring that the chair took its own path anyway. Gambiarra is the Brazilian tradition of inventive improvisation, of making do brilliantly with what's available. Here we see that sustainability isn't a design philosophy imported from a manifesto, but it's a cultural intelligence embedded in how communities build their lives. The Favela chair has been produced since 2003 by Italian furniture company Idra. It commands prices that reflect its status as a design icon, even though it's made from scrap wood. It shows us that the story, the cultural intelligence, the handcraft, and the material honesty can produce value that no amount of conventional material investment can replicate. And here we have again an entire design studio because they had too many impressive works for me to pick just one. Rotterdam-based studio The New Raw was founded by Panos Sakas and Foteni Setaki, and it's built one of the most rigorous and visually compelling practices in circular design. The New Raw's Print Your City project produced public seating for Thessaloniki from 800 kilograms of local plastic waste. The studio's Elements collection for Coca-Cola Greece collected 720 kilograms of marine plastic, transformed it into 3D printing filament, and produced beach furniture, including changing rooms, sunbeds, and modular walkways that were deployed across 6 Greek beaches. And each piece is 80% recycled marine plastic. The aesthetic is unapologetic. The forms are bold, the surfaces are textured with functional elegance. The patterns aid ventilation, water drainage, and structural strength, and the material's origin is visible and celebrated rather than hidden. The production method is to collect plastic waste, skip energy-intensive pelletizing and filament making that are used in conventional plastic recycling, and rather feed the material directly into large-scale robotic 3D printers that the studio designed and built themselves. The resulting furniture is made entirely from waste plastic that is also 100% recyclable. Another fully closed loop. The new RAW demonstrates that circular production is not a constraint on design ambition. It can be a generator when it's handled with intelligence and craft. Number 11 is something I find just as exciting as any museum-collected design. It's actually an entire social scene, exemplified by a single object. The branch chair is made by Alt, which is a small emerging design studio in Thailand. You almost certainly haven't heard of them, and that's precisely the point. Across Southeast Asia, in Thailand, Bali, and across the region, a generation of young designers trained in contemporary design schools are returning to work with expert artisans with knowledge of local hardwoods, traditional joinery, and deeply sustainable production practices. They are making furniture that looks nothing like what the West imagines when it hears Southeast Asian craft. It looks like this branch chair, rounded solid wood forms, warm honey-toned timber, cream upholstery, and organic proportions that sit equally comfortably in a design studio in Amsterdam or a house in Chiang Mai. This is not bamboo furniture, it's not rattan. It's contemporary design thinking applied to local sustainable materials by people who understand both with equal depth. The branch chair is beautiful, but what it represents is larger than itself. There's an entire design scene producing work of genuine international quality, largely outside the spotlight of the design press and the museum acquisition cycle. These studios are proof that sustainable design intelligence is not the property of Scandinavian capitals or Italian design weeks. It's emerging everywhere that designers take their local material environment seriously. We close with Studio Swine, with what I think is a wholehearted and ecologically forward act of sustainable design. Studio Swine is the collaboration between Japanese architect Azusa Murakami and British artist Alexander Groves. For their graduation show at the Royal College of Art in 2011, they collected plastic waste from a beach in Cornwall, melted it down and made chairs from it, creating the Sea Chair project. They sailed into the North Atlantic Gyre, which is one of the world's great oceanic plastic accumulation zones. On their research vessel, they fished plastic from the ocean surface and created chairs at sea from the material they caught. Each chair carries a tag with the geographical coordinates of where its plastic was found. The production process is completely mobile and solar-powered. Studio Swine designed and open-sourced both the Nerdler, a device for collecting microplastic from beaches, and the full manual for making a sea chair, so that anyone, anywhere with basic materials and skills can make one. The Sea Chair won the Gold Award at the 2013 Design Biennale in Slovenia, and the film of the project won second prize at Cannes. So I want to end this episode with Studio Swine's stated mission: to dust off the cardboard and self-flagellation reputation of sustainable design and turn it into something genuinely desirable. Not just for how it looks, but for how it's made. That's the argument of this whole episode. The pieces we've looked at today are not compromises, they're not gestures, they're proof, accumulated across decades, continents, and material traditions, that the designers who treated sustainability as a creative constraint, rather than a commercial limitation, didn't just make better products. They built the most coveted, most copied, and most enduring objects in contemporary design. They leveraged a creative constraint to create something extraordinary, and the aesthetics proved the business case. So that was my edit of 12 iconic sustainable design pieces that have disrupted the design landscape. Let me know which one inspired you most and which one you found most interesting. And if you're a founder, designer, or brand leader watching this, I have a question to leave you with. What do your current material choices say about your brand's values, story, and the future you're building towards? How can you catalyze your clients towards even greater engagement with your brand and your products by making them stand out with this level of personal investment into the product development? That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll look forward to seeing you again for our next round of On Emergence.